time, people. He will break your thirst at any time. Good to have you here, man. Antonio, good to see you. Thanks for coming on in. Let's see here. The gorgeous and talented Helena. Tewaz, how are you? Good to see you. And I think my brother Eugene, there he is. I did see him. I did see my brother Eugene. There he is. Good to see you, Eugene. Thank you for coming on in. The gorgeous Michelle C. is here, everyone. Give her a wave if you don't mind. Triple M, Mr. Man, Mr. Good to have you here. And Stella for Star, welcome to our chat room for the first time, I believe. Maybe the second. I think this is your second or third, actually. Correct me if I'm wrong. Fapster and Oob to Joe's Main, you've got Pickle Ricks. Yes, you do have Pickle Ricks, my friend. Good to see you, buddy. All right, we are 30 seconds away from launching tonight's show. Preston Dennett is our guest. We love it when Preston comes on the show. Good way to support us. If you're new, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, and let us know that you are going to be here. We are here 7 days a week, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. The Super Chat is open. Thank you to Emily Bigelow for kicking things off there. We're going to get going here in just a couple of seconds. Hi there, Jordan Pettit. Good to see you. And Open-Minded Clarity. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Preston Dennett began investigating UFOs and the paranormal back in 1986 when he discovered that his family, friends, and co-workers were having dramatic unexplained encounters. Since then, he has interviewed hundreds of witnesses and investigated a wide variety of paranormal phenomena. He is a field investigator for MUFON, a ghost hunter, paranormal researcher, and the author of now 28 books and more than 100 articles on the subject. He is one of the best. You can find his website, prestondennett.weebly.com, if you want to check him on out. I highly suggest you do. My good friend Preston Dennett, it is always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio. You're turning into a little bit of a legend here. When there's weird encounters, people are turning to you now.
Yeah, who would have thunk? This is not where I thought I would be back in the day, but I'm here now and happy about it. Yeah, 28, 29 books and counting.
My goodness, my friend. How do you do it? Where do you find the time? Because a lot of people don't know that a lot of us here, as much as the people may know our names and what we do, we still have daytime jobs. You know, we still are working a lot of hours, man. How do you find the time?
Well, I tell you, it cuts into my TV time for sure. I enjoy it. So, I come home from work and this is what I do. My weekends, by day I'm a bookkeeper. By night and weekends, I do my UFO hunting and paranormal research. I love it. It's a lot of fun. And I think if you enjoy it, that makes it a lot easier.
For you, what is the thrill of the chase about UFOs and ETs?
Are you kidding? What could be more interesting? I don't know. I'm kind of obsessed with this subject, and I'm not exactly sure why. I mean, I know my family is involved, and I've come to realize I'm involved too. But once this subject grabs you, it's it's hard to let go. It really is. There's just so much to it.
Is there a profound experience that you have had or your family has had that's really got you driven to do this?
I think initially what really kind of tipped me over the edge was when my sister-in-law started describing how her encounter with gray aliens. And she had no idea. I mean, she hadn't read any books about this. And I had picked up a few books by that point. This was, way back in 1987 when I started really digging in, 88. And hearing her just talk about these gray aliens in front of Stagg Street Elementary School wearing olive green jumpsuits. She was 10 feet away from them. No. They locked, very close. She locked eyes with them, and she did not know what they were. She's like, I don't know what to tell you. I did not know what they were. She didn't see a UFO, so she didn't quite make the leap that these were, gray aliens. They weren't popular like they are now. But yeah, I still think about that particular encounter. That's the one that really got me thinking, okay, I need to figure out what's going on here.
Now, were you always an inquisitive investigator type?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I was really all about science. Science. I was kind of a materialist, and I always wanted to be a writer. I always was kind of thrilled by adventure stories and survival stories and science fiction and this kind of thing. So, on one sense, yes, but the moment you brought up UFOs, I was ready to turn around and say, no, I don't want to hear it. I am not interested in ghosts, life after death, particularly UFOs. I figured the stars are too far away. They can't be real. That was kind of my reasoning.
Now, for you, as you delved more into this, did you come in with a skeptical attitude that something, might not be right with this, and you were proven wrong? Or did you always have a little bit of belief in the system of what was happening to people with these incredible encounters?
No, I was vehemently skeptical. I really, really was. And I think that's what made it really hard for me. And I'm still struggling with it. Honestly, that's one of the reasons I investigate, is because this hit me so hard. It was not good news. Not as far as I was concerned. I mean, the subject wasn't taught in schools. People weren't taking it seriously. There was a lot of ridicule back then. When it ever appeared on the news, they would just joke about it. It was always very tongue-in-cheek. And ironically, finding out UFOs were real, which took me a couple of years to really decide that, has made me even more skeptical. Now I have to question everything. I mean, I just couldn't believe that this slipped by me for so many years.
So then when you look at what's happened over the last couple of years, and you and I have talked a few times over this, about this subject, when you look back now and see where we are today, what's your overall thoughts of what is happening in the UFO field right now?
Inevitability. I think it was inevitable that sooner or later this cover-up would disintegrate. It was always kind of an open conspiracy. There's been a lot of whistleblowers for a very long time. People from pretty much every level of government, from the military-industrial complex. The cover-up was a disaster from day one. So now I'm pleased to see there's some movement. I still think this is very tightly controlled. It's clear the cover-up is still in place. But I'm pleased to see UFOs, on 60 Minutes, on the, headlining the evening news on almost a daily basis. So that is good news as far as I'm concerned, but I'm still a little jaded. I am. I mean, there was talk about disclosure right when I got involved in this field, and it never happened. It just never happened. So we'll see.
Do you think this is just a big game that's being played again? Much like it was back in the early 90s when we all thought disclosure was happening then?
To a certain extent, I think the rules have changed a little bit. I think now we're armed with evidence. We're not only armed with really good evidence, solid physical evidence, not just landing trace cases and radar returns, but we have implant removal cases. We've got enough government documentation through the Freedom of Information Act to prove that this is a real phenomena. So I think the rules of the game have changed. It's still a game for sure, but now I think we're on the winning side of history, and the government is scrambling. I'll call it the government, the secret government, what have you.
So for you, do you think then that right now, leading up to June 25th and the so-called disclosure date that we are supposed to be having, do you think that right now there's a bunch of people at the Pentagon for the last number of months who've been scrambling on figuring out what they need to hide from us, the general public?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's going on. I don't think they're doing this voluntarily. I don't think they're doing it voluntarily at all. I think they're being forced into it. And for me, the end game of disclosure is seeing the Roswell craft, seeing the bodies. I don't think we're going to get that at all. I think the only reason they're doing it is for one reason only: control. They want to control the situation. And now it's to their benefit to disclose, because if they don't, they're going to lose all credibility. They're going to lose all control over how this subject is being perceived. So they're going to do their best to put a spin on it, I think.
What do you think gets disclosed on the 25th?
Honestly, I'll be surprised if they use the word extraterrestrial. I mean, just the way that I hear them talking now, like, oh, this could be a foreign power. We don't know what it is. They know what it is. They've known for 70, 80 years at least. They know. So I don't think they're even going to say extraterrestrial. I hope they do. Maybe we'll be surprised. Maybe they may show us a piece of metal. I think that's coming along. I think we're probably going to get some more footage at some point. I think more witnesses are going to be coming forth. But I feel this is very, very tightly controlled. I'm sure there's some infighting within the people who are covering this up. But they've got a plan, and they're going to stick to it as best as they can, as near as I can tell.
Is this healthy for the UFO environment going through this right now? Because the last couple of years really has been a complete shaking of everything that is going on. So I'm curious, is this healthy, what we're seeing here?
Yeah, I think it's great news for the whole field of ufology. We're getting a lot of new people who are discovering that there is some validity to this. I think those are the ones who are going to be really surprised by this disclosure. I think the people who have been in the field for any length of time, whether it's 30 years or 2, are not going to see so much that's new. But once we have a whole new crowd of people here, it's injecting all this new lifeblood. I think that's going to give us the energy. It's going to tip the scales. It's going to keep things moving forward. And let's face it, the cat is out of the bag. The UFOs are not going to go away. This subject can only move forward. I kind of look at it as a dam with a million little leaks. And that dam is collapsing, and there's going to be a flood. Sooner or later, everyone's going to get soaked.
Well, let's hope so. I'm going to say this. My attitude towards disclosure, Preston, has really changed. I always wanted it because as an experiencer, I want to know what happened to me. And anything that draws me closer to figuring out what happened to me, as well as others, I think that's important. We have a right as humans to know what's gone on and the things that we have seen. However, I got to admit, my attitude has completely flipped on this. I don't know if we're ready as a human species for any type of disclosure. I don't think we are ready at all for any type of alien presence. As much as we are hearing about UFOs, I think they've done a great job at segregating UFOs from aliens. But when I look at the big picture, when I see how we've treated people through the COVID crisis and the way that people were hogging and hoarding at the grocery stores and at the gas stations. I mean, look when that gas company had a little bit of a computer hack problem, and then everybody was grabbing literally garbage pails to fill up gasoline just so they wouldn't run out. I think we are a panic-stricken society right now, and I think if all of a sudden we throw aliens into the mix, my God, man, I do not want to see what goes on. I really don't.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't. I think the problem is we're just steeped in fear, and that's a real problem. There's a lot of divisiveness. That's the whole media. I'm not sure is our friend really. I think there's a level of ignorance being foisted upon us. This field is filled with disinformation. We know that. That's not speculation. We've dealt with, very volatile subjects before. The whole nuclear crisis, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the AIDS pandemic. We've dealt with very difficult things before. And I honestly, and this is just my humble opinion, I think UFOs are good news for humanity. I don't think they're here to take over.
You know that, and I know that. But the person who is buying 72 rolls of toilet paper, okay, really doesn't know. The person who has decided to fill everything from, stealing coffins and filling them with gasoline. I'm teasing a little bit there. But, their garbage cans and coolers and everything with gasoline because we're running out of gas. I think that's, like you said, we're too panic-stricken right now to all of a sudden bring down a bunch of little gray dudes coming out of a ship at Devil's Tower, which is a tree stump, not a rock. I'm a firm believer in that. But, I don't think we're ready for it, man. I want to be. I want some aliens to land in the backyard of SOR headquarters here and say, hey, Dave, time to go for a ride. I'm ready for it. But if I look at my neighbors to the left or to the right of me, don't know.
Yeah, I think that's what's preventing open official contact is our prejudices, our warlike ways, our tendency to shoot first and ask questions later. I think this is exactly why UFOs are doing what amounts to a vigorous publicity campaign. They are showing themselves over city centers like the Phoenix Lights, Gulf Breeze, Hudson Valley Wave. There's a big wave every 5-10 years. We're way overdue for a really good one. But it's more than that. I mean, they are showing themselves to small groups of people at a time, whether it's over schoolyards. That's definitely a thing. I just wrote a book, UFOs over drive-in movies. That is a thing. I found 100 cases where UFOs will literally, and I'm not kidding, drop down right over the screen and show themselves off to the audience. They are doing this. They are showing themselves on purpose to people over and over again. And now we've reached sort of that 100th monkey effect. I think more than 50% of the population believes in UFOs. I think it's something like 20% claims to have seen them. I think it's probably a lot higher than that. If we're not ready now, we're close. We are close. And yeah, some people are going to be upset. But I think ultimately we'll adapt. We always do.
Well, let's hope that we do, Preston, because there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and that is for sure. And I don't think we're going to get them out of our trusty elected leaders or our military that is supposed to have our best interest in favor. I don't think we're going to get it out of them. But, as we got about 6 minutes here before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour, what are some of the biggest secrets you want to know about if disclosure were to happen?
Well, definitely the UFO crash phenomena. I think that really bothers me because here we have the very best evidence, solid, conclusive, absolutely conclusive proof, and zero of it is in the public arena. Basically, the whole UFO crash retrieval phenomena rests solely on eyewitness testimony. There are some people who claim to have, metamaterials and such, but it's not available to the public. That I'd like to see. I'd like to know what's happening on the moon. Supposedly, there's very good evidence for this, if you look into it, that there are artifacts on the moon. That's going to be a huge, huge story one day. And the whole onboard UFO experiences, that phenomena, that's very widespread. This is something I think the secret government has worked very hard to cover up. And that I would like to see become more mainstream, opened, studied. The Eisenhower meeting, I think with the ETs, Edwards Air Force Base, February 1954. Evidence is good. That took place and was filmed. I want to see that. I want to see the footage that Gordon Cooper developed at Edwards Air Force Base when a UFO landed on the runway. He saw the footage. He's a good witness. Show us that. Show us the gun camera footage. They have a lot of evidence they're sitting on, and I want to see it.
See, that one I want to see. That Gordon Cooper footage, because I believe they released 8 seconds of it where you see this little ball of light coming down, but they don't show the landing and the beings getting out. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't, and I want to. There's so much stuff on the internet that I just don't trust. I mean, some of it's obviously fake. I expect there's a lot out there, though, that's real, and they're doing that sort of disinformation, misinformation game. Like the alien autopsy. That's a really good example. We don't know if that's real or not, but I suspect what we're seeing is, in its basic story, real. I mean, that has happened. I'd love to see that and know for sure whether the alien autopsy, the Santilli film, whether that's real or not. I don't know, but I know that has happened.
I know that's happened too. And for me, I think the biggest one for me is the Phoenix Lights. I want to know what happened there. When you have 60, 70,000 people in a city of 2 million who eyewitnessed this, and then you have movie star Kurt Russell coming out saying, I was the pilot who first reported this craft when he was flying into the Phoenix area. This is the one where I really, truly believe we as a public got screwed.
Yeah,
we got screwed. And for people who don't know, back on March 13th, 1997, a giant boomerang-shaped craft was seen over Phoenix, Tucson, and I believe Mesa, just flying around. And it was like a 2-hour type of encounter, was it not?
It sure was. It flew over. Well, I think there were 2 craft, actually, based on just the eyewitness reports. And there were FOIA requests on this, which were completely denied. Luke Air Force Base went on high alert. They were scrambling planes. They issued numerous false statements, as did local police. I definitely want to know the truth about what went on there.
Sure. The big thing for me about that one, Preston, was the absolute insult that former Governor Fife Symington did to his constituents, which was the next day, all the media is in this giant hotel-like ballroom for a press conference. There's literally hundreds of local, state, and national media there trying to figure out what is going on, and he absolutely slapped his citizens across the side of the face by bringing out this dude in a costume of an alien gray and saying, we got our man, we arrested him.
Yep. Shame. And he saw the Phoenix Lights. He actually came forward years later and said, I was a witness. Now he's a pastry chef and I guess feels more comfortable. But just think how different things would have been if he would be a sitting governor and say, yes, I saw it. They were real. We're looking into it.
Do you think he was shut up?
I don't know. I don't know.
See, that's the one that gets me, man. That is totally the one that gets me. Is I feel bad for those people, and I've met people, I've talked to people who've witnessed that, and to this day they are still bothered by it.
I don't blame them. Yeah, I don't blame them one bit. There should be lawsuits, reparations, and I'm not even being facetious. I am totally serious. This is a serious subject. Despite all the woo-woo and the ridicule factor and the disbelief and skeptics, this is a profoundly serious subject that's taken very seriously at high levels of government. They're spending our tax dollars an enormous amount of time and effort to cover it up, to study it, to make witnesses look like idiots. It's taken very seriously.
Well, we have about 30 seconds here before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Preston Dennett is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. For you, it's about time. The time is now, right? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Why now? Preston, why now?
Oh, well, I think we need it. The world is on edge. There's so many... it could change the world. If we truly do have this technology, and I think we do, it could solve the energy crisis. It could solve the economic crisis, the environmental crisis, all of it.
Let's talk a little bit about that when we come back. One of the best UFO writers in North America and the world. Preston Dennett is with us. Let's talk some UFOs, ETs. What are they doing hanging out here on Earth? Let's see if Preston knows. We'll be back. All right, we're clear, buddy. That was a solid first half hour. That was fast.
Yeah, it always goes faster than I expect, which is good. That's a good sign.
Yeah. Preston's like, all right, we're almost done. We're almost done.
No, I love doing this stuff. This is what I live for.
I know. I'm just teasing you, brother. I am just teasing you. I'm just saying hello to all our people in our chat room. I got to open up a window here. Man, it's warm in the studio today. Woo-wee. I'm starting to sweat. That ain't good. Just bear with me, buddy. I am so going to run out of water here. Gary's like, come on down here to Oklahoma and you'll really sweat. Nope. Don't do humidity.
Hey, we're supposed to be 100 degrees tomorrow, so.
What am I? Hold on. What's the temperature in 108 Mile Ranch? I'm at 17 degrees Celsius, 62 Fahrenheit. I am at perfect temperatures. Perfect temperatures. And later this week, the weekend's supposed to be in the mid-70s, and on Monday, 80 degrees. That's just way too much. So, way too much. Yeah.
Hey, got to be 100. Get this, 127 degrees last year. Just a few days, but
no,
couldn't go.
No, you can have that.
You couldn't go outside. I mean, you couldn't.
Nope, that's good enough for me, man. That's good enough for me. I'm telling you. There's just that's just a waste of heat. All right. Dolly's like, you two are still public. It's great. Yeah, we're still here. Hanging out with you. We're just on radio commercial. Hi, SJ. How you doing? All right, I'm just going to quickly open the studio window here because it's getting warm in here. All right, there we go. That'll take care of things. That'll take care of it. It always does. All right, I'm just seeing if I missed anybody. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Preston lives in California, Uncle Dale, so he's a little too far to run to Texas to rub your mustache for good luck. I love Uncle Dale. Love Uncle Dale.
Hey, I have a niece moving to Texas, so I'll call her.
Pretty cool. I'd love to go to Texas. I've never been. Okay, 1 second here. Big thank you to Greco, to Fapster, Science Bob, Carl, Madison, Major Lee, and Alaska's greatest athlete, Emily, for the awesome super chats. It's a great way to support this show on a nightly basis, so thank you so much for doing that. Really do appreciate it. And thank you to all our new listeners who are in the chat room tonight. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We would appreciate that. and give us a thumbs up, thumbs down. And when you hit that subscribe button, ring the bell. We are here 7 days a week. I'm here Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. And then Lynn Wallington takes over the Saturday night show, and Michael W. Hall on Sundays. We are here live for you. You don't need to go anywhere else, just right here. Yeah, hit that subscribe button. That's it. That's all we ask. Hi, gorgeous Marie in California. How are you? Good to see you. And we're about 20 seconds away here, Preston. I might as well grab some water here. Five seconds. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight. Preston Dennett is here. His website, prestondennett.weebly.com. He's got like 29 books out regarding the UFO phenomena, ET contact, and it's amazing. He can find these amazing stories from around the world and get high-quality information to pass on to you, the reader. It's definitely books you want to add to your UFO library. Preston, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Where do you find these stories, man? I mean, 29 books, and they're all different. Where are you finding them?
It's not hard. A lot of people are having encounters. And, it started out with just my friends, family, and coworkers. And soon their friends began contacting me, and I started going to UFO groups. And, it just sort of snowballed. Sometimes it comes in the weirdest places. I'll be at line at the bank or something, at the post office, and someone starts talking about UFOs. And I look down and, am I wearing my UFO shirt? What's going on? It can be weirdly synchronistic. I've gotten a lot of cases from people at my office. We had a high turnover for quite a while, so that was definitely a source of stories. People hearing me on shows like yours. Every time I speak on this subject at a convention or a UFO group, more witnesses come forward. A lot of people read my books and contact me because they hear a story that's similar to theirs, perhaps. So all over the place. It's not hard to find. Like I said, I think really this is not uncommon. I heard a quote very early on in my research. I think it was from J. Allen Hynek, who said that 1 in 40 people have had an onboard UFO experience. And that's another thing that kicked me into high gear. I'm like, no, there's no way that 1 in 40, are you kidding me? That's way too many. I would know someone who's been on board. Didn't have to ask 40 people. This is quite common. That's what always I've been most interested in, is people who are actually having contact. That's what most of my books are about, first-hand stories.
These are some of the most real stories that I think are out there. A lot of times we hear a lot of reference type of guides and books and statistics and everything, which is great because there's a lot of work and a lot of knowledge that goes in there. But I'm a guy like with this show, Preston, where I love those personal experiences, those personal encounters. Why have you taken it so personally to bring these encounters to the public?
Those are the ones I find most fascinating. Those I think are the stories that have the most pay dirt in them. This is where we're going to find out what the UFO agenda is. Roswell is a great case, but there's how many books on it now? 50 more. Seriously, if I read another book about Roswell, I'm going to scream. Unless they show me the craft. I mean, Roswell's not going away. I don't want to discount it. But we need a continuing flow of new information to educate people. This is an ongoing phenomenon. It's changing all the time. And I think it's important that we keep up to date with what's going on. People are still having contact to this day. Some of the stories in my latest book are still unfolding. Many of them are, I should say. This is when someone has contact, it's usually not a one-off. This is something that they experience over and over and over again, starting from early childhood, often throughout their lives till they pass on to the other side, the great beyond.
Very true. You know what? One of the stories that I love, and we kind of got into it the last time you were on a number of months ago, but I would love to go there again, is you wrote a book about the story with the ET UFO landing at the elementary school, I believe, in Africa.
Yeah.
Tell our listeners about this. This is one of those stories where I don't think gets enough press.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's not much more talked about. You're talking about the Ariel Elementary School, right? 1994, I believe it was September, Rua, Zimbabwe. Some 200 kids were on the playground when a number of UFOs showed up, 2 or 3. One of them actually landed. 3 humanoids came out, and at least 60 students saw this craft. A number of them saw the humanoids, and a few actually communicated with the humanoids. Not one single teacher saw this. There was only one teacher on the playground at the time, and she was right next to the school minding the snack stand. Students did run up to her and said, "Something's going on." And she said, "Stop pulling my leg. Go away." Most of the teachers were inside having a supervisory meeting. But this is a huge case. And what I find interesting about it is it's not unique. This is a thing. This is what made me write a book. It's not just about that one case. I collected and documented over 100 cases of UFOs landing at schoolyards, hovering at very low level, and all over the world, starting really from 1950 onwards. There's been high-quality cases every single year, multiple, and it's still going on. There are current cases. It's been photographed. Witnesses number anywhere from 10 or 20 to 40, 50, in some cases hundreds. I think one case in New Zealand had 400 students.
No way.
Yeah, Richmond Elementary School. It's another thing. Half of these cases are elementary school kids. I think there is something significant about that, because these UFOs are reaching out to the most impressionable of humans, the youngest kids.
How long are these sightings for? Are they like split-second sightings, or are these going on for minutes?
Oh, these are long-lasting. There's several profound differences that separate them from your average sighting. Your average sighting is an anomalous light at night. It darts by. It might stop and hover for a second, turn it at right angles, and zoom off. That's not at all what's happening here. In these schoolyard cases, 99% or 98 are daylight sightings, usually early morning or noon, afternoon. Beyond that, they're very low level. 1,000 feet would be very high for these types of encounters. Usually it's 100 feet, 50 feet. And no, they're not brief. They're very long lasting. I would say 5 minutes would be on the short end, which is a long time for a UFO encounter. More often it's 15 minutes, an hour. I mean, there are some of these cases that actually took place over a period of days. So these are not random sightings by any means. These schools are being directly targeted, the students and teachers in over half the cases. So it's not just kids seeing this. They see these objects off on the horizon or way up there in the sky, and it comes zooming down and targets the school directly, starts circling around it, hovering right over it, and in 30% of the cases, 30, that's a lot, they land, and or humanoids are seen. So these are not your typical, flyby by any means.
No kidding. No kidding. Are those children who are being contacted, let's say, are they becoming new abductees or contactees? Are they getting downloads?
Sometimes, yep. I did look into this. I'm like, one thing that all of these witnesses will say is it profoundly affected them. It's something they sometimes think about daily. Many of the witnesses have said this. In some of these cases, they have reunions to come back and sort of commemorate this thing. Some have become UFO researchers, like Malcolm Robinson. He was at his school. I think it was Bankery Elementary School. I'm not sure on that one. But at any rate, he and his friends saw this spherical silver object hovering over the playground. They watched it for about 10 to 15 minutes before it zoomed off, and it impressed him deeply. And he's now one of the leading UFO researchers in Scotland. He wrote UFOs over Scotland 1 and 2 and other books. This is definitely something we see. A number of them have become UFO researchers. Some become very interested in quantum physics or astronomy or this sort of thing. In the Rua, Zimbabwe case, Emily Trim, she said she did continue to have contacts. And this does turn up in other cases as well, as if sometimes these UFOs are scouting out kids to sort of build a lifelong relationship with. So that absolutely is a factor here.
Now, recently, as we kind of move on to your other book, you have books about wondrous 25 true UFO encounters. And this is one that is just kind of new to the subject here for you. I'm curious, when you go through this and you try and pick 25 true encounters, what are you looking for?
Several things. I'm looking for cases that I think have something to contribute to our understanding of the UFO phenomenon. I want them, of course, to be original, never before published, something new. I wanted this book to cover sort of the whole gamut of encounters. So I did include like sightings with telepathic contact. I think a lot of people aren't aware that even a simple sighting can have profound levels of communication there. There's a really interesting USO account. There was a lot of interest in that. There was 3 whistleblower accounts in that book, which are ones that I've been wanting to include for a while. I really wanted to get a wide variety of cases that I think have high credibility as well. There's one involving an implant with x-rays and everything. They're in the book. It's an incredible case. Multiple witness cases, that always adds a level of credibility. So there's many sort of things I'm looking for when I'm picking a case.
What makes you believe the encounter when you put it in? Give us an example from the book.
Well, for me, what makes me believe it is when often what will happen is a witness will contact me. Like the first case I put in the book involves a lady who had a very unusual encounter outside her home while jogging. She was jogging along outside her home in O'Fallon, Illinois, 2006. This is a rural area. It was 4:30 a.m. She's jogging with her dog when she sees a man on stilts walking down the center of the road. This is a busy road during the day, but at night, at that hour, there's no one there. And she knows this can't be a man on stilts. That makes no sense at all. And suddenly this thing walks right under the streetlight there, and she sees it's a praying mantis, a tall humanoid, I guess. It's got, it's walking on 2 legs, praying mantis, and it's 15 feet tall. She knows this because she could see it measured against the streetlight. It was gray in color, making 10-foot strides, just booking it down the road. She did not want her name used. She was very reluctant. The reason she contacted me is because she had done her research and couldn't find any accounts that matched it until she read one of my books. And there was a Navy medic that I interviewed, Kevin Kamen, who saw a 15-foot tall praying mantis. So she was looking for verification. That's why she contacted me, and that's something I hear, not a lot, but fairly consistently. People are looking for information, and they can get very emotional. That's another sort of cue I look for. There's all sorts of ways you can sort of corroborate or verify a person's story. But it was clear from the beginning that she was telling the truth. She's a school teacher, very lucid witness. I talked to her, more than once, so I can see if she's changing her story. And yeah, it was an amazing encounter.
No kidding. No kidding. For you, when you're looking through these, okay, if we look at those 25 experiences, you also mentioned ones that included implants, and you got X-rays of this implant. Take us through that story, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite in the book. Boy, this mother and son duo from Indiana, they just really pulled on my heartstrings. I love them. She contacted me because they had gone to the dentist. This was 2013, I believe it was, around there, 2016. And the dentist started freaking out when they took the X-rays of her 14-year-old son, and called her into the office, showed her the X-rays, and said, "What's this?" And these X-rays show what looks like a marble or a BB under her son's back molar. It's this opaque, round circle right under his tooth. I said, "What's this? Did your son shoot himself in the mouth with a BB gun?" And they both said, "No, that never happened." And she just joked. She says, "Oh, well, maybe it's an alien implant." And nobody laughed because they were freaking out. One of the dental assistants was so upset she had to leave the office. So this completely freaked her out. She got the X-rays. They went back. It was still there. They took multiple X-rays. And this began her search for answers. And she became obsessed with this because there were no answers. There was no good explanation for this. And she finally hit upon the UFO subject, very reluctantly, I would add, and started looking for someone to help her with this, and found me, sent me the X-rays, and with her permission, I sent them to two physicians, actually, an emergency physician and a regular physician, and both said the same thing. Did the patient shoot himself in the mouth with a BB gun? And I said, "No, he didn't. They deny this. There's no entry wound. The tooth is fine. And if you look at the X-ray, it's much bigger than a BB. It's closer to a marble size. No, that did not happen." And they both said, "Well, I would diagnose it as a metallic foreign body because it's totally opaque on the X-rays." So I asked her, I'm like, "All right," this is when I started, digging in deeper. "Do any of you have a UFO history? Have you seen a UFO?" And she says, "No, I haven't, and neither has my son." And I'm like, "Well, you better, ask him again if he's sure." I didn't talk to him directly. He was too shy, but he was in the room, and I was on the phone with a main witness, or the mother. And she says, "Well, have you seen a UFO?" And he says, "Well, yeah, I guess so." She's like, "What? Why didn't you tell me?" He was embarrassed. He said, "Well, yeah, it happened just before they went to the dentist, a month or two. They were outside their home, he and his best friend, when these colored lights came zooming down and hovered over them and started flashing lights at them." So that's how this all began. And what I like about this case is it was unfolding in real time. Often it will take years for a witness to contact me, and they're talking about events that happened long ago. This was happening, as we were talking. And so I found out about this sighting, and it was maybe a few months later. We were still in contact. We still are. I consider them good friends. A year into this investigation, she calls me up. She says, "You're not going to believe what happened." I'm like, "Tell me." She says, "The Greys came last night." I'm like, "Wow." Yeah, her son had gone to sleep with her in her bedroom. He was having trouble sleeping. They both sleep with night lights on. This is another little clue for me that this is a real case, because this is something I hear from many contactees. They sleep with night lights. They have trouble sleeping sometimes. And he had gone to sleep with her, and she woke up in the middle of the night, unable to move, finally pried her eyes open, and there was 2 grays hovering over her son. A third gray was by the door of her bedroom, and she could see that he only came right up to the doorknob. They locked gazes, she and this gray, and the gray telepathically told her, everything's fine. You don't need to worry. Everything's going to be okay. Your son is fine. You're fine. There's no need to worry. You're okay. Everything's fine. Over and over and over and over again. And she woke up the next morning and didn't want to alarm her son, but told him what happened. She says it might be a dream, giving him sort of a little bit of comfort there. But this is what happened. And he's like, they came. And he said, for you? And she said, no, honey, they came for you. And they told me everything's going to be fine. And she says that was all she needed to hear to sort of ease her mind. She now felt much better. Before that, she felt like Richard Dreyfuss building mountains out of mashed potatoes on her plate. I mean, she was obsessed with this. And that gave her some peace of mind that everything's going to be fine. And there's a lot of really interesting aspects to this case. One final thing I would mention is that her son is profoundly psychic. On a daily basis, they say he has profound synchronicities, clairvoyance, this sort of thing. And that's a really strong pattern I see.
We've got 2 minutes here before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour, or make that the top of the hour. Preston Dennett is our guest tonight. When you hear a story like that, mother, son, both in that situation, how could the mother trust that what she was being told was the truth? I mean, because let's face it, if we know anything about these alien grays, they seem to be the masters of manipulation.
Yeah, well, she was the one who was there, and sort of have to go on that. It was her experience. Not everyone feels that it's a positive experience. She did. And I have to tell you, most do. This can be very scary initially for UFO witnesses. In fact, that's not unusual at all, particularly in childhood. People will describe night terrors and nightmares and even PTSD. But as someone overcomes the sort of fear barrier or the fear response, they start to have much more positive experiences. People are taken on board and shown the craft. They're given freedom of movement. They're allowed to remember everything. They're given warnings. They're given spiritual information. They're taken to the control room, the engine room. And in her case, she felt it was a positive experience. She had another one. She was pulled on board again. And she said it was all this craft was surprised her. It did not look like what I normally hear. She said there was a couch. There was what looked like a widescreen TV, a doorway. She said it reminded her of a living room. And they had dressed it up to make her more comfortable. And in walks this 9-foot tall praying mantis ET. And I think you just have to go. Each case is unique. So I take each case individually.
30 seconds before we got to go to break here. Did they ever look at getting that BB or whatever it is pulled out surgically?
Well, he did have his wisdom teeth removed, and the oral surgeon offered to do it, and they declined. They did not want to have it removed, no.
Weird. I'd have got it out. But something like that, it may have disappeared.
Yeah, what happened at one point when they were taking x-rays is they took one x-ray, they took a second x-ray, it was gone, and a third x-ray, and it was back again. These things can actually move around inside a person's body. I've heard of that before, and it definitely happened, and there's proof of it in this case.
Well, we're going to find out more from you, Preston Dennett, as we go on in the evening tonight, because Preston Dennett literally has about 29 books on the UFO subject, from personal encounters to incredible sightings. His website, PrestonDennett.weebly.com. If you want to check him on out, I highly suggest you do. We're going to get into more ET Encounter stories with the great Preston Dennett right after this in Hour 2 of Spaced Out Radio next. All right, we're clear. I'm just going to run my dogs outside. I'll be right back, okay?
You got it.
All right, I'm turning your mic down. Put you like this. All right. I am back. And hello, Bushi. How are you? Good to see you. And let's see who else has come in here. Yes, Clam, open your mind. Open your mind. Yes, a little Quato will always get shown on the chat room. Hey, Preston Dennett, what's going on, buddy? Let's see here.
There's another Preston, huh?
Yeah, we got another one here. We're reeling them all in for you, buddy. Hey, thank you, Johnny B, for that great super chat. I appreciate that, man. Thank you. He says, theory, China is key. It may be that the powers behind disclosure, China forced the hand of the U.S. to disclose by mobilizing all their allies against the U.S. system because of a perceived threat of an ET-U.S. treaty from the past. That's actually kind of interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, nope. I'm not sure the U.S. is going to be the one who discloses ultimately.
No, I'm not sure about that either. Noble Patrick, how are you? And the lovely and talented Candy Romero has joined us. Justin S., welcome. Big thank you to Johnny, to Elaine, Ben from UFO Garage, Greco, Fabster, Science Bob, Carl, Madison, Major Lee, and Alaska's greatest athlete, Emily Bigelow, for these wonderful super chats. It's a great way to support the show, and we really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for everything you guys do. Preston Dennett is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio, and we are going to make this happen in 5 seconds. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Here we go.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Want to say hello to everyone tuned in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Jiffy. Jiffy is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with Preston Dennett. UFO encounters is the topic of the night, and we are all over the place with these awesome UFO sightings and encounters that Preston has documented over the years in his books, 29 of them. 29 books on UFOs and ET encounters. It can be found at prestondennett.weebly.com. Preston, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks, Dave.
All right, let's continue on here because, the one thing that I love is ET encounters. This is something that absolutely spooks the hell out of me, even though I've had it happen to myself. But it also intrigues me because I love knowing what other people are going through. And one of the ones that really intrigues me about this is, and you've written about this in one of your books that's called UFO Healings, is people who claim they've had health issues healed by extraterrestrials. Take us down this rabbit hole, Preston.
Yeah, this was actually kind of shocking to me because I came into this field thinking, well, people are being abducted, experimented on, kidnapped against their will. This is horrific. I don't know if this is good for us. And very early on, I met this witness who said that she was having these experiences and that they were very scary. She's had very extensive encounters. I mean, she describes having hybrid babies, grays surrounding her bed, pulling her up into this craft, being physically examined, even anally probed at one point, the whole deal. But she got over her fear barrier, started to communicate with these guys, and she had this very interesting experience. She said she had this tumor in her fallopian tubes. It was on MRIs. She was scheduled for surgery. It was causing her a lot of problems, bleeding, the whole deal, and was going to have surgery the next day when that night they came. The ETs came into her bedroom. She doesn't quite remember what happened, but she knows they were there. Went to the surgery the next day, and they did the pre-imaging, getting her all prepared for surgery, and come into her room and says, well, this is odd. They were holding the images, and they said, you had surgery, didn't you? And she said, no, I sure didn't. And she's getting a little bit of a sinking feeling because she knows that her experience the previous night, probably something happened. They said, well, this is very strange because we cannot find your cyst. It's gone. Wow. Disappeared. And they said, so we know you had surgery. And she says, well, no, I didn't. They said, you're lying to us. She says, honest to God, I did not. And they said, they showed her the images. They said, well, see here, there's fluid right here in your fallopian tube. This cannot be present unless you've had surgery. They started physically examining her. They found these, what looked like laser scars on her abdomen. They said, when did you get these? How you went to surgery? We know you did. And she absolutely denied it. At this point, she kind of figured out what had happened. And the doctors were really upset. She refused to tell them what happened. I said, why didn't you just tell them? I'm having UFO encounters. She says, are you kidding? I didn't want to get one of those funny white coats that they give people and dragged off to a mental institution. Which is actually, does happen. I've talked to people that this has happened to.
Oh, explain that. Let's go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, I know a lady in England who had just had a baby and had an encounter. There was another witness there, and a very large UFO came right over her house, and she told her parents, and her parents thought she had lost her mind and had her institutionalized, even though she could produce another witness. They did not believe her, and they forcibly put her into a mental hospital, and it became an ongoing problem in her life, dealing with these mental health professionals. I'll call them professionals. And I know another guy who just barely avoided that. Same sort of thing. It was his family going crazy, thinking that he's claiming to have had contact with praying mantis ETs in his case. She was seeing human-looking ETs following this UFO encounter. And this is a problem. This is something that does happen. So I can see why witnesses are sometimes reluctant. I do know one guy, Jim Schaefer, who was healed of cancer. He showed me his medical records, and he was very upfront with his doctor from day one, because he would wake up with puncture wounds and bruises, and he wasn't really happy about his encounters. He didn't remember really anything. It was all shrouded in missing time. But he went to his doctor and he's like, here, it happened again. Look. And his doctor's like, wow, I can't explain this. I guess I'll just have to believe you. And at some point he was diagnosed with cyst, or a cancerous tumor on his neck, on his lymph nodes, and had to have surgery. And it was growing faster and faster. It was bone hard. And it was about a week before surgery. This is something that the ETs, and this is what I believe is happening here. I do believe we're dealing with extraterrestrials. They will wait till like the last minute while you're on your way to the hospital, or just a day before or a week before. He had an experience. He had this orb. He actually filmed this orb coming into his room and entering his body. Filmed it. I've seen the film. It's on the internet, actually, if you're willing to dig deep enough. His name is Jim Schaefer. He's from, actually not far from the Falcon Lake area, where Stephen Michalik.
Stephen Michalik, yeah.
Yeah, had his encounter. So he woke up the next morning. He went to bed, woke up the next morning went into the bathroom and could not believe his eyes. His tumor was gone. Went to the doctor, told him what happened. They're like, oh my God. They could see his tumor was gone. They did surgery anyway to remove necrotic tissue, said that they found no cancer. And yeah, I've seen the medical records on this. They did not write aliens healed Jim Schaefer. They just put spontaneous remission, unexplained. And I can see, why because they can't prove aliens did this. But it's good evidence. It's really, some of these healing cases are really good proof that there is something very unusual going on here. Certainly true in his case.
The thing is, for a lot of us, it kind of upsets us. It really does. Like, who do they pick to heal and who do they pick not to heal? Like, for instance, I'm an ET contactee. My mom has had a pretty unhealthy life. I would love for the fact of these beings to come down and grab my mother and heal her up. Because I kind of like my mom, she's a good lady, helped me out a few times, kind of gave birth to me, that whole sort of thing. I would love for that to happen. So how are they picking and choosing?
I think there's a couple of factors going on here. One I noticed right off the bat is people who have a long history of contact are much more likely to have this type of experience. I mean, if it runs in your family, they do follow generations, bloodlines. So that's absolutely a factor. But beyond that, it's hard to say. It's evenly divided between men and women. Age isn't a factor. Education, religion, political affiliation, blood type, race, none of that seems to be important. It happens to very young kids, elderly people. But I did find one thing, and it's a loose pattern, but it keeps turning up. I remember there was a case by John Hunter Gray. He was healed. He's a social rights worker. Started to see, Dr. X, Jacques Vallée's case about a guy in France who was healed of an axe wound. He's a doctor. And I was interviewing this one lady from Norway. She was healed of a back problem. Gray's just came in, flipped her around on her stomach, put this instrument against her back, walked right out through the wall, and she has no history of encounters whatsoever. And I'm like, well, what do you do for a living? She says, I'm a graphic artist, but my true passion, and please don't use my name because I'm pretty well known, is animal rights in her country. She is very active in the animal rights movement. And so I started to see that people who are being healed are people who are doing good work for humanity in some capacity. So I think that could be a factor. But honestly, it's hard to say. There are a few cases where people have asked for healing and gotten one. There was one lady who was suffering from total renal failure, could not urinate for like 3 days, went to the doctor. The doctor was horrified. He's like, you have complete kidney failure. You need to go to the emergency room right now. And instead she went home and called her family and says, I'm having renal failure, pray for me. Called her boss, her people at work, her friends, told everyone to pray for her. Next thing she knows, she's falling asleep. And in the middle of the night, she wakes up and there's these short little kind of squattish beings, not grays. They were dark-skinned, massaging her abdomen. She can't move. It went on for some time. She wakes up the next morning and goes to the bathroom. She feels much better, goes to her doctor, and he completely flips out. He's like, I don't know what to tell you. I must have misdiagnosed you. I think I really have no explanation for this. And she told everyone, I think it must have been angels, because she has no history of UFO encounters. She did not know how to explain this. But it was 2 months later, she was taken on board again, saw the same beings. This time she's actually in a craft. Not taken on board again. She's taken on board and finds herself in this rounded room, laid out. They're placing an instrument over her and showing her all her organs in full living color. This is something I've heard from many witnesses. And she's describing the same exact thing. And they showed her kidneys. And they said, look, your kidneys are healthy now. They're fixed. You're doing much better. And they showed her other organs and got to her liver, which was covered with these dark spots. And they said, your liver looks really unhealthy. See all these dark spots? And she said, yeah, I see them. And they told her, you need to stop drinking Diet Coke. It is damaging your liver. But my point is, she asked for healing and got one, and I'm not sure why. Because some people have been healed partially. One lady was in a car accident, and they said, we're fixing you, but we can't heal everything because some of these injuries are karmic. That turns up in a few cases. So that could be a factor here, why some people are being healed and others aren't. It's hard to say.
I'm telling you, the way they choose, man, I know that if I get a horrific disease or something, I can honestly say I'm putting it out there. They better come get me and do something about it. Otherwise, I'm going to be really pissed off, Preston. Really pissed off.
Well, spontaneous remission is a real thing, and I think they don't tell a lot of people. They just sort of hide it. Don't, erase their memories, or the person naturally, it's pushed into their subconscious somehow because they're traumatized. And ETs, I don't think they want to scare people, so often that's what they will do, is they will just remove it from your conscious mind. I think they're healing a lot of people, honestly, I really do. And all we get is, oh, I was healed by angels, or it's spontaneous remission, or I don't know what happened, it went away.
Right. So for you, when you hear about these healings, are they happening often, or is this something that's just a once in a blue moon?
I looked into this too. I mean, like, how common is it? Because I was running into this in about 20% of my cases. And Bud Hopkins said it seemed pretty rare, but he has cases. So does David Jacobs. John Mack said he had quite a few. Edith Fiore, she's the first PhD to write a book on encounters, onboard experiences. She said fully half of her clients had this experience. Dan Wright, who did the MUFON transcription project, cataloging cases, said it appeared about in 10% of the cases, 7 to 10%. But most recently, there was the Free organization headed by, or co-founded by Ray Hernandez, who's become pretty prominent in this field. They did a big survey, and they got about 50% of their respondents saying, yes, they've had a healing. And I looked into that. I got access to that evidence. And I would downgrade that a little bit because I looked at some of what people considered a healing. And it would be like going to a psychic healer. To me, that's sort of not what I'm talking about here.
Right.
But I would say it's closer, probably anywhere between 20 to 30% that this takes place. And I think this is what often is happening when someone is being physically examined. This is what's going on. And it's not just being taken on board. I mean, there was one guy who had kidney stones, was rushing to the hospital, and a UFO came circling around the car. And he's like, my pain is going away, my pain is going away. And it darted off, went to the hospital, and his kidney stones were gone. And you know why he was healed? He was best friends with a contactee. And the contactee was in the car. So I think that's a factor as to who's healed and why. That someone has an in.
Preston, I got a question from our audience here. Derek is asking in our chat room. When healings occur, do any of the people remember the method, or is it just magically gone?
I would say in some cases it is magically gone. Just being in the mere presence of a UFO, sometimes, I don't know. I'm not sure how this happens. Perhaps there's an invisible beam, or they're doing this in a way that escapes our conscious mind. Just as often, though, people will be perhaps struck by a beam of light. That's what happened to a police officer in Damon, Texas, who had been bit by his son's baby pet alligator on his finger and had a wound. He was struck by a beam of light from a UFO, and this wound went away immediately. Healed, a la Star Trek, those little tricorder things, they can heal cuts. That's exactly what happened to him. That's what happened to Jacques Vallée's patient, Dr. X, healed of an axe wound, and for that matter, paralysis. There's another very famous case of a Peruvian customs official who was out on his veranda, struck by a purple beam of light from a UFO. It was pretty high up there. It healed him, get this, of nearsightedness and rheumatism. There's a number of cases, instantly. So yeah, often it's beams of light. People will have a visitation in their bedroom, and the aliens will hold like little flashlight type things. But as often as not, people are just driving down the road or walking outside their house, and they're struck by a beam of light. 50% of the cases are onboard encounters, particularly if someone's, say, being healed of cancer. And I know how this must sound to a skeptic, but I've documented 300 of these cases. Wow. 300. And it stretches back 100 years. There's not a place on earth this hasn't happened. I mean, I'm serious about that. Canada, all across the U.S., all across South America, Africa, all across Europe, England, Puerto Rico, Russia. I mean, you name it. There are healing cases. Australia. I could go on. This is widespread and is happening to a lot of people and covers oh my God, I mean, everything from colds to cancer. It's broken bones, cuts and bruises, backaches, liver disease, kidney disease, heart disease, diphtheria. David Jacobs had a case like that. Jaundice, hepatitis, diabetes. There is a long, long list of illnesses being healed, chronic or even, incurable diseases are being healed.
Could it be possible that these diseases are being healed because the extraterrestrials want to study these diseases?
I am not so sure that that's true. Some people feel like they're being healed for the benefit of the ETs. And there is some evidence to support that because, some people are, carrying babies for them, perhaps, or providing genetic material, or are part of their study of genetic lines. So I do see that, but I don't see any evidence that they're just healing them to study the disease itself, because they are healing people of the same condition over and over again. And it can be very simple conditions, like a backache. We've got like 10, 15 cases of that. Or like, here's a great case from Leonard Stringfield. I don't get it, but this is what happened. Chuck Doyle of Florence, Kentucky, was outside his home when a manta ray-shaped UFO shows up. It's hovering over his neighbor's yard. It's shining down a beam of light. Suddenly, this beam of light starts coming across the yard towards him. He turns and runs. It strikes him right on his body, paralyzes him. He's kind of perched there in a half-running position. The beam of light retracts. He falls to the ground, jumps up, and races inside. And actually, while this beam of light struck him, not only was he paralyzed, he said it felt like being struck by a bucket of ice water. But he started seeing these weird landscapes, weird geometric images, mathematical symbols that went over his head, weird structures. It was very interesting. So the beam retracts. He runs back inside, tells his mom. She runs outside. I think she just barely glimpsed the UFO moving off, if I'm correct. But he had a very severe head cold at the time of this incident, and it was gone instantly. So why would the ETs heal a little boy of a head cold? That's my question. I don't know. I don't think they're studying him. You know what I mean? It's just sort of a random event. Perhaps this was a accidental side effect. I don't think so, because he was struck intentionally. I mean, this beam of light came right for him. But again, it's hard to say. I hate to speculate in this field because it can take you right down the rabbit hole.
So in other words, be careful of these beams of light, because they could either kill you like they did with Travis Walton, then the alien's got to take you for 5 days to bring you back to life, or they can heal you from any potential health issues that you are currently suffering from. One of the two.
Yeah, there are a lot of injuries. I mean, I could have written a book on UFO injuries. There's been one written already. Well, but a lot of those are accidental. It appears to be accidental, whereas the healings seem to be intentional. And it wasn't just me saying this. Thomas Bullerb, who was one of the first people to actually study the UFO abduction phenomena, he was the first to point that out, that a lot of these healings are, seem to be intentional, whereas the injuries show all the signs of being accidental.
Preston, we have a bunch of questions coming from our audience members next when we return as we continue on tonight, UFO Experiences, with one of the best UFO writers in the world, Preston Dennett. We continue on Spaced Out Radio right after this. All right, we're clear. To my beautiful audience in YouTube, if you could do me a favor, I would be greatly appreciative. If you could put your questions in capital letters, it is much easier for me to read them and to get them to Preston, if you don't mind, because the chat room moves pretty darn quick, and I don't want to miss any of your questions that you may have for him. So, excuse me, I apologize, but I would appreciate if you could do that. That would really, really benefit me and help out. Thanks, guys. Kind of cool. Still hot in here, not going to lie.
You have it easy. It's 10:30 here and it's still 85, almost 90.
That's just way too much heat. Dude, I'm sweating at like 10 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, I'm just glad I have an air conditioner. I don't know how people get by without it in this town.
No kidding. I thought that was mandatory for where you live.
Yeah, I think so. Should be.
No kidding. Totally should be. Up here, very few houses have air conditioning. Because it can get to, like, this summer it'll get to 100 degrees here. Not a problem. But when the temperature cools down at night, there's only about 4 or 5 days that we'll go through that are kind of unbearable, even with the windows open. And the rest of the time, you're just kind of like, all right, need to cool down. Like tonight, I'll cool down and I'll just open my window. I do it old school up here. It's beautiful.
Yeah, we have at least a month that's unbearable here, at least. And when I first moved into this little house here I have, there was no air conditioning. I about died.
Oh, I bet. That's when even a cold shower doesn't even feel good.
Nope, it doesn't stick.
No, that's true.
You'd have to stay in the shower.
Right? That's all you got to do. And then you get the water bill afterwards, and you're like, oh, goodness.
Well, I just take a drive. That's what I do.
Very nice. Very nice. Excuse me. Well, it's 21 degrees Celsius in Toronto. And you have the humidity from at least you got the breeze from Lake Ontario. So you're okay there. Hey, DVA Mechanics on Twitch, thank you for watching us. We're kind of new to the whole Twitch thing, so hit that subscribe button if you don't mind, or follow button. We'd appreciate that. Lots of questions coming. I just hope I don't.
All right. Love questions.
I just hope I don't miss any because chat room, the chat room is moving so fast right now. Nothing can heal the Toronto Maple Leafs, Greco. Nothing can heal the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's just the way we like it. God, it feels good when they lose. I always feel taller after the Toronto Maple Leafs lose in the playoffs. Always feel taller. My pride of Canadiana just surges right through me. All right, we are about 1 minute away here, bud.
All right.
All right, a big thank you to Jason, Johnny, Elaine, Ben from UFO Garage, Greco, Fapster, Science Bob, Carl, Madison, Major Lee, and Emily for the amazing super chats tonight. It's a great way to support our show. Thank you to all the veterans who are listening in and all of our regulars who are here on a nightly basis. We love you. Here we go with the second half of the show. We're underway with the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with author, researcher, a man who loves to put the fingers on the keyboard. He's got 29 books out there regarding UFOs and ET contact and abduction. Preston Dennett is here. You can find all of his books on his website, prestondennett.weebly.com. Preston, welcome back.
Thanks, Dave.
We got a ton of audience questions for you here, my friend. So I'm going to start firing them off to you. Start off with casual conversations with G&A. Do people ask to be healed to make the connection, or do they choose who they heal?
I think for the most part, they do the choosing. This is on the ET's terms, not ours. And I say that because there are a lot of people out there who aren't being healed. This is true even among the contactee population. There are many people who are experiencers who are suffering from illnesses, which I know the ETs do have the ability to heal. So I think on some level it is on their terms. But there is a small smattering of cases. I'm going to say it's about 10% maybe, where people have prayed, not even necessarily to ETs, but to angels or God or what have you, and have been healed. There was a case from the Midwest involving a lady who was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was diagnosed. She was going to have surgery, and she was praying with her husband. They were crying, and that evening she was pulled on board a craft, saw gray ETs, shocked her, knocked her socks right off. She had never had an encounter with these guys, had no reason to expect to, and they healed her. I am not sure why. I really don't know, but it does happen. There was a guy who was a contactee. He did ask them to heal his impacted wisdom tooth, which was infected, and they did. But for the most part, I think people who are asking for healing are just doing it for the healing, not necessarily for a connection. And usually it's on the ET's terms.
All right, let's continue on here. Tony is asking, hi, Dave. Hi, Preston. Could you ask Preston his thoughts on what he thinks angels are and where they are from?
I like this question. Thanks, Tony. Because I looked into it. I looked into all aspects of the paranormal, ghosts, Bigfoot, you name it. And I have to tell you that evidence for angels is pretty compelling. According to formal, religious tradition, angels are non-human spirits who are benevolent and working for the good of humanity. And the flip side would be, of course, demons. And some people think demons are what UFOs are. I think this is a separate phenomena on both counts. I think probably there are angelic spirits out there, non-human angelic spirits. in the traditional sense. However, there is a bleed through for sure. In fact, there was one lady I talked to, I'm still great friends with her, from Maine. I call her Lynette. She's in one of my books. The Greys told her flat out, we've been watching you for millennia. We've been manipulating human DNA and animals. They told her specifically cats and dogs to make them more emotionally relatable to humans. They told her people should start disappearing from this planet. It's being done by them for the universal good. They gave her a number of prophecies of future disasters that would happen. They told her that she needs to tell people to stop putting out greed and negativity, or we're going to destroy our planet like they did. And they also told her, and that's pertinent here, is that what we thought were angels was actually them, and that we have been misinterpreting it. So I think, yeah, in some cases, probably what people thought were angels wasn't. And I wonder about incidents like the Fatima incident. I believe that it was in 1917, Portugal, maybe 1913, around then, which was classified and still is as a religious miracle, but really has all the elements of a UFO encounter. So there's a weird bleed through there. I think a lot of cases of angels are probably ETs. I mean, we certainly see the wheels of Ezekiel and the book of Enoch, and a bunch of biblical accounts could be interpreted that way.
I can see that.
So I think, yeah, there's a bleed through there. But angels are probably real. I have never talked to anyone who's seen, wings and stuff. I've read accounts. I've had a bunch of out-of-body experiences myself, looked into that, and I've never seen angels on the other side. But I am not going to rule it out. I think probably angels do exist.
All right, let's get to Nikki's question. Preston, have you had any stories where the ETs have broken the roof off of a human's mouth and re-knitted it back together?
Gosh, I cannot say that I have specifically heard that. I think that there are cases where people have been injured on board a UFO. I can think of 3 right off the bat where people fell down and hurt their back or broke something and were healed as a result, or that sort of thing. But intentionally, no, I can't say that I've heard something like that. Perhaps people have had implants, perhaps up in their sinus cavity, and they'll feel a crack sort of through the membrane there, and then they heal it up. So there's similar things, but I can't say I've heard that exact procedure before. Wouldn't surprise me, though, honestly, because they do seem to have a very good understanding of the human body. They know how to move around in it, and if they want to get inside, and they will, and they can heal it right back up.
Z. Ali is asking, why do there appear to be so few cases from the Middle East?
I think it's probably cultural reasons. We have a lot of freedom of the press here. I can only speculate. I can't say I've really looked into that. I do know that there are cases. I mean, there was a very famous case of UFOs over Iran, where a bunch of people saw a UFO and they actually shot at it. It was a huge, huge incident. 1976, I believe it occurred around there. I know there are many cases all over the world, but I think some people are not given the freedom of expression to talk about it. There's a lot of ridicule surrounding this subject. I've been asked by people why are there so few, black people who've had encounters? I'm like, what? Because that's not true either. I mean, it's not just Barney Hill, who was black. In every one of my books, there's a person, multiple people of color. I think this is just something that we're dealing with in our own cultural biases that is keeping this information from being freely shared. That's just my personal opinion. Again, I've not really looked into it, but that would be what I suspect is going on here.
Yeah, a good friend of this show is Craig Jaycox, is African American, and he is also an experiencer too. And I remember talking to him about that. He was like, he wished that more African American people would actually come out and discuss these happenings to them, so it doesn't look so one-sided.
Yep. It's definitely a problem, but I think we're moving in the right direction.
I hope so.
And again, I just want to reiterate this. I don't think ETs are the least bit prejudiced. I honestly, that's what the evidence is showing. I found it's not blood type and it's not race. I've interviewed people who are, Polynesian, Filipino, Latino, Asian, black, white, all over the world. I don't think that really is a factor. I really don't think it is.
Hey, we could all have aliens. That's all that matters. Let's just go get some aliens. Let's move on to another question here. This one coming from Derek. What's your favorite case you've researched?
Oh gosh, out of what, 300, 400, 500 more? Great. Let me think for a second. One case that does come to mind was a real estate agent and a therapist who was a young woman driving through the Watchung Mountains in New Jersey. Watchung Mountains. It was late at night. She crashed her motorcycle. She was fine, but this is a remote road in the mountains. Not expecting anyone to drive by. And the motorcycle she was driving had an old-fashioned Kickstarter, and it was bent up so that she could not start the bike. She's wondering what the heck she's going to do, how she's going to get out of this situation, which was, suddenly dangerous. And this is when these, I'll call them hybrids, because they weren't exactly grays. She said they looked very human, other than having very pale skin and large dark eyes and bald heads. They could have passed for human if they wore sunglasses and a hat, she said. But they were wearing very tight-fitting jumpsuits or nothing at all. She couldn't quite tell. And they approached her, and she stepped back. They took her motorcycle, stood it up. One pointed or kind of motioned her to stand back, which she did. The other bent down and started fixing the motorcycle. And I know how this must sound, but I looked into other cases where people have been rescued from car accidents, drownings, falls, storms. There's a long list of what I would call UFO rescues. And this is one of my favorite. This is one I personally investigated. And they straightened this kickstand out without tools, just using his hands, as far as she could tell. Set the motorcycle back up, stepped back, motioned her to get on it, and which she did. And she kick-started it. It started fine, and off she drove off. Didn't see a UFO. She regrets not staying a little longer and communicating with these guys. But she said it was a little scary because they were clearly not human. And she just drove off. But yeah, they rescued her. It's one of my favorite cases.
That's interesting. All right. James is asking, have you ever heard of people being healed from drug addiction?
Oh, yeah, I sure have. They've been cured from depression and drug addiction. One guy was addicted to marijuana, and the Greys appeared and said, "Stop smoking marijuana. This is not the life we had planned for you." And that kind of shocked me when I heard that, because I'm like, what? They're planning people's lives? So yeah, and they've stopped people from being addicted to cigarettes as well. That happened to John Hunter Gray. He was a heavy smoker, and after that, he wasn't. They certainly do dispense dietary advice to people. They told Jim Sparks to stop eating meat, that it was messing up his digestion. And he did. They reabducted him and gave him another anal probe. And he's like, "What are you doing?" "I stopped eating meat." And they said, "Yeah, we know. And we needed to check to make sure it's helping you." And it is. As far as, heavy duty drugs, I don't know of a case. It wouldn't surprise me. One guy I do know who had suicidal depression, actually drove out into the desert and had a gun and was ready to end his life. And a Greys appeared. And he said, quote, "It voided the suicide." He ended up having missing time, but it cured him of his suicidal depression. So they cure people of mental illness and, yeah, in some cases, addiction.
Tony is asking, Preston, do you know what the percentage of UFO experiencers are that practice Reiki?
High. It's a high percentage. It's a great question because I hear this a lot. This is one of the reasons I'm pretty encouraged about UFO contact, because it transforms people for the better. Yeah, it's scary to be physically examined by non-human entities, but that's the worst I hear. I don't hear torture. I don't hear ETs purposefully hurting people and enjoying it, or any accounts of sadism. What I do hear is people coming back from their experiences doing Reiki over and over and over again. I included a chapter of that in my book on the healing cases because of this. This is something that happens fairly consistently. I don't know the exact percentage, but I would say it's as high as 20 or 30%,
Really?
not more. Yeah. It's people who haven't encountered will come back very interested in hands-on healing, Reiki, aura healing, channeling, psychic reading, dowsing, astral travel, which can be very healing. I've got many cases of people who've been healed as a result of astral travel, and all kinds of stuff like this. So it seems to me they're very, very, this is definitely, I think, supported by the evidence. They are interested in, and actually do this, waking people up to our own, I guess what we would call superhuman abilities, but are really natural human abilities.
All right.
And healing is one of them.
Solar Warden is asking, Preston, are you familiar with the work of David Paulides and the missing 411 cases? If so, what are your thoughts in relation with it being the potential connection to UFOs and extraterrestrials?
Yeah, I talked with David firsthand. Very interesting guy. I think he's a good researcher, and this does seem to be a thing. A lot of missing people out there. And I'm guessing, I can only speculate because we don't know what's happening to these people. I'm guessing that there are a number of different causes. Some of this could be due to trafficking, a human agent. Some of this could be due to reptilians. They don't have a good reputation, and it appears that they are out there on this planet. I don't know in what kind of numbers. I think some of these people are probably just being lost in a normal sense, and just we don't find them at the base of a cliff or in a river or what have you. But I often think of the cases where people are taken and not returned. I have cases like this. And Lynette, who I already mentioned, was told by the ETs, if people should start disappearing from this planet, it's being done by us for the universal good. And I think that
Where do they
could
go?
be. Yeah, that's my question. Other planets, onto the mothership. And yeah, I have a case like this where a guy was invited on board a UFO and he did not return. So I think in some cases probably UFO.
How do you know? Hold on a second. How do you know he didn't return?
Well, here's how this went down. This is a group of 6-7 friends in California who had a cabin. One of their parents did, actually. And they'd go there on weekends and just hang out, drink beers, and have fun. And one of them, Paul is his name. I know his last name. He went missing. And everyone was starting to freak out. And finally he shows up and he's like, you're not going to believe what happened to me. I came upon a landed UFO. They were really friendly. They were largely human-looking, bald, large eyes, but human-looking. He was taken on board. It was very clean, all white. They were wearing white uniforms, told him they were studying this area. This is sort of the Palmdale, Lancaster area in Southern California. And they invited him to go with them. And he said, no, I don't think I'm ready to do that. And they said, well, we're going to be here next year at this time. And if you'd like to come with us and live with us, you can. Just meet us here next year. And this is the story he told. I interviewed one of the friends. Tony is his name. And they were like, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you joking with us? And Paul was like, absolutely serious. Not the kind of guy to joke about this. And long story short, a year rolls around and Paul gave away his belongings, quit his job, told his friends, I'm going up there. They said, are you going to go with them? Are you for real? And he says, I don't know, but I'm going to go see if they're there. I'm going to meet with them and hopefully I'll, see them. And he drove up alone and didn't come back. And so Tony and Paul's friends and actually Paul's family drove up there and they found his car, keys in it, never found Paul. I don't know where Paul is. It was a true missing persons case. They called the police. Police questioned each of them and they told them exactly what happened. And this UFO story is somehow connected to all this. I think Paul's probably with the ETs. I don't know.
I wonder if they take them back to their own world or they take them to another planet to maybe learn, study, whatever it may be. Another human planet.
I know people have been taken to other planets. This is not super common, but certainly does turn up. And yeah, I think they do. There's a lot of other planets out there. It's not just Earth. I mean, NASA knows this. We're finding a lot of them.
Very true. We got about 3.5 minutes before we have to go to break at the top of the hour. Preston Dennett is our guest tonight. Antonio is asking, Preston, what do you think the winged beings the Russian cosmonauts saw are? Maybe what we think are angels?
I don't know. That's a good question. And I wonder about that because, look at the Mothman. Mothman's not unique. And it's still going on. There's a bunch of recent sightings up in, I think it's the Chicago area. And I know a couple of cases of, quote, the Owl Man in New Mexico. Same thing, winged beings. This is something that turns up. There's a lot of different beings out there. I think most of what people are seeing are extraterrestrials in the classic sense. But, there are probably interdimensional beings out there, nature spirits, all kinds of stuff that we have a tendency to lump under one umbrella, which might be a mistake. Again, I just want to collect the evidence, sort of show the facts of what we got going on. I hate to speculate too much, but yeah, I think it's a good possibility. What we thought were angels are actually ETs.
That's kind of scary to think. Especially, I don't know, man. I like to think of them as different beings, but it does make sense. It does make sense if they are intertwined or connected one way or another.
They've been around a long time. We know that. Not just a few hundred years or even, no, it's not just 1947 and onward. It's been millennia. We know this.
I'm very curious to continue on that conversation. We got 2 minutes to go about people who've disappeared. And you mentioned you've talked to a number of people who know those who've had contact, said, this is my go date, and then I'm gone.
Yeah, there's a very famous singer who had encounters. Gosh, I forget his name. But he's pretty well known within the UFO community. He had written a song about UFOs, had contact, and just disappeared. Jim Sullivan? That might be it. That's a case. There's also the case of Felix Moncla, who was vectored while flying an Air Force jet over Lake Superior to a UFO. It was on radar, and his blip merged with the UFO, and the UFO took off. Felix Moncla Jr., who was like 19, 21 years old, a young man, was never seen again. Presumably he went with the ETs. And I always wonder what happened to Frederick Valentic from Australia. Same type of thing. He had a UFO hovering over his plane. Said it's not an aircraft. I don't know what it is. He was talking to the control tower operator when, boom, the transmission ended. And there were people, who actually saw UFOs in that area at that time. It's a very well-known case, one of Australia's most famous cases, next to the Westall High School incident, another UFO schoolyard case.
Have you ever heard the story of Granger Taylor?
No, can't say that I have.
This is an interesting one. Going back to 1980, Granger Taylor was like the man who could fix anything. He had zero education, but he was known as a brilliant man. Even built a spaceship in his house. He used to rebuild actual size trains. No training whatsoever. Just rebuild them. And one day he said, they're going to come take me. And on that date, he disappeared. They found his car blown up in the mountains, but no trace, no DNA of Granger Taylor. Preston, we'll be back with you. We got Preston Dennett for another half an hour here on Spaced Out Radio, Hour 3 of the Mighty SOR next. Yeah, look into that Granger Taylor case. That one's amazing.
Yeah, I have to. I just wrote it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know of other cases too.
Yeah. I'm going to run my dogs out. I'll be right back, okay?
All right.
All right. right, Preston, I am back. All right, I'll get you to turn your mute off. There we go. Put it right there. So just stick with me through, we'll get to the break at the bottom of the hour, and then I will be able to let you go properly. All right, we got about 1 minute. 1 minute.
All right. Yep. I expect we're going to have more missing people, too. So.
Well, I'll tell you, if Carl and his boys come back and say, hey, Dave, let's go for a ride, but we're not taking you back, we're not bringing you back, there is a good chance that there may not be a show the next night.
Hey, give them the opportunity. I'm not going to say that I would turn it down.
I'm the same way. Thank you to Jason, Johnny, Elaine, Ben, Greco, Fapster, Bob, Carl, Madison, Lee, and Emily for the amazing super chats. It really supports what we do on Spaced Out Radio on a nightly basis. Thank you so much to everybody who's tuned in, all of our regulars in the chat room, and all the veterans out there. We absolutely love you. So here we go with the final hour.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Jiffy. Jiffy is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, once again, and check it on out. Follow us on social media. Now, for the final time tonight, we introduce Preston Dennett. He is one of the top authors when it comes to everything to do with UFOs and ET contact. All of his books can be found on his website, prestondennett.weebly.com. Preston, welcome back.
Thank you, Dave.
I still have a bunch of audience questions for you, my friend. So we're going to fire them up because they've been pretty good so far. And let's just continue rolling on. Solar Warden is asking, what are your thoughts, Preston, on the NASA STS missions from the 90s? Weird UFOs being captured in infrared videos.
I've seen some of them. I'm not sure exactly which ones we're talking about here, but there are several. But there's one with a weird snake-like thing. Others where UFOs appear to be being shot at. And I wonder about some of these because NASA's like, oh, no, that's just a frozen ball of urine. And other people are like, no, that's a spaceship. And like, how can we confuse the two? That seems wild to me that there could be such widely varying interpretations of what we're seeing. Some are clearly large objects distant from the camera. I think it's clear that NASA knows a lot more than they're saying. They've been caught in lies many, many times. I mean, it was the press who nicknamed NASA as standing for never a straight answer. So I think that they probably have caught a lot of very interesting footage. If you examine the whole space race, starting from the Gemini and Apollo missions and onward, there are an enormous number of encounters that keep cropping up, whether it's the International Space Station or Skylab or even the Russian Mir. And to this day, we're having encounters that seem to be associated with NASA and their missions. So it doesn't surprise me a bit that some of this footage is leaked out, and I think probably some of it is valid. I'm not a photo expert. This is not really my area of expertise. I kind of only know what's in the public arena, like everyone else. But I do know a little bit of inside information. I did hear from a very good source that there are two camps in NASA, those who have seen them and those who haven't. And that was kind of how it was put to me, meaning that all of them know it's real, and some just haven't seen it yet.
Right. All right. What do you think then about NASA holding a press conference just a couple of weeks ago stating they were now going to be in the UFO business in searching for these UFOs? I mean, for years we heard the rumors that they were scrubbing photos from the Apollo missions on up to the space shuttles and everything around the International Space Station. You know, is it them coming clean, or they just don't want to look dirty in this, so now they're going to say, hey, we're looking into this?
Yeah, and I would call that more than just rumors. That's multiple eyewitness testimony reporting this, that the photos are being scrubbed. I mean, what was it, 5 years ago, they said, we think within a few years we're going to have absolute proof of alien life out there. They've known for a very long time. There's lots of NASA insiders who've become whistleblowers. Maurice Chatelain was one of the first who wrote a book about cosmic ancestors, I believe it was called, something along those lines, saying that we were followed to and from the moon on each mission. So yeah, I think they're doing the same thing our government is doing. They're being forced into disclosure. They're trying to control this whole situation. They're losing credibility if they don't. It's a little disingenuous, a lot disingenuous. It's kind of like SETI looking up the sky and searching for radio waves when right behind them there's an alien tugging on their shirt. Like, we're right here. They know. The evidence is already in the public arena. There's enough evidence to absolutely conclude, without a doubt, in the public arena that UFOs are real. For them to say, like, oh, we're now looking into it. Come on. Who do you think you're fooling? It's ridiculous. It's ludicrous. It's disingenuous. And I think they're doing it just because they want to control our perception of this phenomenon.
All right, Stella is asking, do you think they are extraterrestrials or interdimensionals?
There are a lot of theories out there. There are people who are very well educated in the UFO field who say this is not extraterrestrial, and I disagree. I think they are extraterrestrials. I think most of what we're seeing is extraterrestrials in the classic sense. And by that I mean people like us from other planets, biological beings. I'm not going to rule out that there are interdimensional beings or trickster spirits or jinns or all kinds of weird beings out there. I mean, fairies, you name it. Angels, demons, all of this stuff. I think there's probably some truth to a lot of this, and it all gets lumped under one thing. I don't think UFOs are the same as near-death experiences, or the same as Bigfoot, or if you see a ghost of your, deceased aunt, that it's disguised as something that's just putting on a show. No. I think the grays are grays. I really do. And mantids are mantids. I think these stories are very consistent, coming from people all over the globe for decades, people who don't know each other. The evidence, the extraterrestrial theories best fits the evidence by far. And for that matter, yeah, they are interdimensional, but so are we. We have an interdimensional aspect to us. Every entity does. The whole planet is interdimensional. There are other dimensions. Everything has an interdimensional aspect to it. I think why ETs get this sort of explanation or reputation or interpretation is because we're seeing them disappear, move at right angles, time travel, and all this stuff. But just because something moves interdimensionally or travels through time doesn't preclude it from being extraterrestrial. If they are leaving landing traces, if they're appearing on radar, if we have the actual craft and the bodies, if people are getting physical implants put in their bodies, I think the evidence shows pretty clearly we're dealing with a physical phenomena, physical entities who, perhaps do have an understanding of interdimensionality and other dimensions, but are still just people like us, only more advanced. That's my humble opinion based on the evidence. But if we see the Roswell craft, I mean, all bets are off. We know what this is. And I think our government does know. I think they know that this is extraterrestrial.
All right, let's move on here. And Vinny is asking, are aliens demonic?
No, I don't think so. By and large, no. I'm not going to say every single thing that someone sees is not demonic. I looked into demonology. I did. I investigated some very bad hauntings where people used Ouija boards. Boy, there was one case I investigated, haunted apartments in Van Nuys, where it moved all the way to possession. Some scary stuff. Demons are real. It's a phenomenon that follows a very set pattern. It starts with knocking noises, cold spots, weird odors. Usually it picks on one person in a family, perhaps, a child, someone who's ill, vulnerable, and it escalates. The purpose of demons is to destroy. They're destructive, negative, spiritual entities. The UFO phenomena also follows a very set pattern. This is something that was outlined by Thomas Bullard many years ago. And it's a pattern we see over and over again of a person being taken on board, physically examined, shown the engine room, given messages, having a spiritual transformation, and then being returned. And more often than not, they are changed for the better, which is precisely the opposite of what happens in a demonic infestation. But I think demons do have the ability to sort of disguise themselves. They can appear as relatives or someone you might know. ETs do also have that ability. There's a lot of weird parallels in a lot of these phenomena that I think are causing investigators to lump them together. There are some really remarkable parallels between near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences and UFO abductions. That does not make them the same thing. No, I don't think UFOs are demonic, but I do think there's probably some bad ETs out there. I'm not going to say they're all our space brothers. Some might follow that energy, so to speak, just like humans. There are some downright bad people on our planet. They do not have our best interests in mind. It's a wide, wide universe. I'm sure there are some bad aliens out there, but by and large, no. I'm very, very encouraged, actually, when objectively looking at what happens to people when they're taken on board, and it does not follow the pattern I see with demonic hauntings.
Mark in Australia is asking, Preston, what is the most recent school landing UFO case?
I believe it was, I'd have to look that up. It was Adikuram School, elementary school in Indonesia. It was 1997, I think it was, which was just a few years after the Rua, Zimbabwe case. I know there are others. I found current cases of UFOs hovering over schools, dating all the way up to recently, like 2018, 2019. But as far as landings, I couldn't find any super recent ones. I think they're probably out there, but they sometimes take a while to trickle down. But yeah, this is a phenomena that's still going on, and I suspect we will be having one occur again, very much like the Rua, Zimbabwe case, which is not unique. There are other cases that were very much like the Rua, Zimbabwe case.
Scott wants to know if you're working on any new books or articles right now.
Oh, always. Yeah, I've got articles coming out or out in several magazines. There's a few editors out there who are always asking me to give them an article. So I'm working on that. And yeah, I'm working on a new book right now with oh my gosh, it's amazing. This witness is what I would call a conscious abductee, like Jim Sparks, who's pretty well known for not having to go under hypnosis to recall his encounters. This lady I'm interviewing, actually, she's like my best friend now. We've become really good friends. Her story is far more extensive than anyone else I've ever talked to, at least in terms of her consciously remembering it. And yeah, her story is just blowing my mind every time I talk to her. I've seen her UFOs. She's shown me proof. She's super psychic. She's amazing. I can't wait to get her story out. I'm transcribing her. I was transcribing her interview earlier today. So far done, hours and hours and hours of interviews with her. It's a big, big story.
Larry is wondering, are the Watchers from the Bible?
Possibly. There's a lot of research into this by religious scholars, which I am not, but I've certainly been following this. I think probably, yeah, that's true. This is what Betty Andreasen's ETs said they were. They called themselves the Watchers. I think probably that's one of the main ET missions. They're watching us very closely. They've got multiple missions. I think healing humanity is one of their missions. When it comes to the Greys, certainly reinvigorating their race with genetic material, the hybrid baby phenomena, that's one of their agendas. They've got multiple agendas, but I think they're watching us very closely, many of them, particularly because of our messing around with nuclear power and the possibility that we're on the brink of major collapse environmentally, socially. We could, be on the verge of an existential crisis, and I think that's why they are watching us.
All right. And one is asking, demons are real, and if they are, then you can't believe in aliens, right? It goes against the Bible.
I don't believe that to be true. In fact, the Catholic Church and the Vatican have made very positive statements about the existence of UFOs. There are many houses in our Father's mansion. I think there's a quote there. I am just not... The Bible is something that was written long ago. I don't really want to get into a religious discussion because I'm not equipped. I'm not a religious scholar. There are some UFO researchers who have dug very deeply into this and come away convinced that UFOs are real and that many of the accounts in the Bible were probably ET contact. And the wheels of Ezekiel is certainly one I will point to. But I don't think there's any conflict in believing in demons and angels and extraterrestrials and Bigfoot and humans and ghosts. This is a wide universe. We're still learning what's going on. It's one of the reasons I think it's important to have an open mind and not prejudge anything. We have to throw away our preconceptions, our misconceptions, what we believe, and move towards true knowledge. There's a big difference between belief and knowledge. And I think we have to be very careful to draw a line there between what we believe and what we know to be true.
Good answer. Stella is asking, what are your thoughts on starseeds?
It's a good question. I think we are seeing a sort of progression of our species. Each generation that is being born seems slightly more advanced in terms of intelligence and psychic ability and longevity, even height and physicality. Just 100, 200 years ago, our lifespan was half what it is today. And there's good evidence. I think we've been genetically intervened with. I'm not sure if I'm putting that in correct English, but you know what I mean. That ETs are, intervening in our genetic evolution and sort of improving us over millennia. And I point to, of course, the hybrid baby phenomena. But if you look at, ancient writings, that points to this as well. And the fact that many indigenous cultures across the world talk about their ancestors being, quote, coming from the sky or sky gods or sky people. I think there's good evidence that this is exactly what's happening. The missing links that we don't quite understand how we even evolved on this planet. I'm not so sure we did. If there are human-looking ETs out there that look just like us, that certainly raises serious questions about who we are. And it appears that, yeah, we are being slowly and steadily improved. And that's what starseeds are, just hybrid children. We're probably all extraterrestrials in a really very real sense. But again, we don't know. Human evolution is still a mystery. We don't know for sure where we came from. At least not in the mainstream, we don't.
Very true. Very true. And you know what? I mean, I think a lot of these younger generations that we are seeing, like indigo children, I think we're starting to see a lot more of those, and that might be the reason why a lot of these schoolyard sightings are happening, because the world is filling up with these indigos.
Yeah, the younger generations have a pretty much universal belief in UFOs. There's going to come a time when UFOs are not a mystery. I think once this disclosure starts to really roll up and ramp up, and becomes complete, we're going to have open official contact, and perhaps even before then. That's, I think, one of the factors pushing towards disclosure is not just UFO researchers and society at large, but the ETs themselves. We're going to have open official contact at some point. Contact has been slowly escalating for a very long time. I think that's what we're moving towards. So we'll see. That could be why we're having starseeds. So when they do come, all the kids will be like, oh yeah, I already know about that.
Very true. We got 3 minutes left with you tonight, Preston, and good time for one or two more questions here. PBR is asking, the FAA controls 50,000 passenger flights every day in North America. Why not more UFO sightings?
They cover it up. We got cases from whistleblowers in Cheyenne Mountain where they track all the traffic coming in and out across the U.S., and they get regular reports daily of unknowns. UAPs, UFOs, they always got their little terminology for it to try and cover it up. But this is something that happens regularly. And the fact is, there are many, many more UFO sightings than people realize. If MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, and NUFORC, National UFO Reporting Center, are getting, 20 reports daily, well, we can easily times that by 10, because 1 in 10 people do not, 1 in 10 people, I would say, report their sighting in any official capacity. So, and that's being very generous. It's closer to 1 in 100, I would say, make a report. So let's say there's 20 sightings being reported daily to this reporting center. Times that by 10, that's 200 daily. That's a lot. That means at any given moment, someone's seeing a UFO. And you could times that by 10 again, easily, and probably more accurately. So, yeah, I think there's probably closer to 1,000 sightings daily. Right now, someone's being taken on board. There are multiple people across the globe right this second seeing UFOs. We are swarming with them. It's been very effectively covered up. A lot of money, a lot of effort has been put towards covering this phenomena up. And it's time that ends, because this is not as rare as people think.
All right, one final question as we got 1 minute to go. Casual Conversation is asking, have you yourself tried to make contact with these aliens?
Yes, and successfully so. I mean, I started having sightings not long after I started researching this, but in 1994, I think it was, I joined SETI, which was headed by Stephen Greer. He came out here to L.A. We formed a LA chapter, and we used lights and meditation. Called down a UFO on the first night. Could not believe it. I was shocked. And we formed this little group, and we called them down a dozen times over a period of years. And yeah, I've had some really amazing sightings and what I would call UFO dreams, if you don't mind me putting it that way, where I've been taken on board.
Nice.
So I don't know if I'm contacting the people I'm talking to, but yeah, I think on some level I've definitely had contact.
Wonderful. Preston Dennett, it's always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio. A real pleasure. PrestonDennett.weebly.com. where you can find 29 books on this subject, and I highly suggest you do because they'd be great for your UFO library. Coming up next, we have the SOR News Wire and the Thought of the Day. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. Great show, buddy.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, I had a blast. It was awesome.
Really had a blast with you too, my friend. Always knowledgeable, always present, and you know what? You're one of the best, dude. You really are one of the best.
Oh, shucks. Hey, I love hearing it. Thanks.
All right. I'll let you go. I got to get ready for the news here, but thank you for coming on, man. We'll do it soon.
Hey, you bet.
All right.
Love it.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Preston Dennett, everyone. How awesome is he? How awesome is he? A few claps for him. Hey, Cognizant Dissident, how are you? Damn it. Oh well. Let me make sure we got all this. Thank you, guys. Really do appreciate it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Nicola. I appreciate that kind words. Really do appreciate it. Thanks, Blue Book. I want to say a big thank you to Jason, to Johnny, to Elaine, Ben, Greco, Fabster, Science Bob, Carl, Madison, Major Lee, and Emily, a.k.a. Alaska's greatest athlete, for the amazing super chats tonight. Really do appreciate your time and everything that goes on. Thank you to all our listeners. Here we go. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. I really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Speaking of the news, the news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes the contact. Alien contact could ultimately end life on Earth, and we shouldn't seek to communicate with them as risks of endangering mankind, according to experts. Their fears come after it was revealed NASA is now actively investigating UFOs, and as a bombshell U.S. intelligence report is poised to not rule out the existence of alien life. Physicist Mark Buchanan wrote a piece in the Washington Post that referenced Defense Department videos, including one which showed Navy aircraft encountering unidentified area phenomena. The startling clips, which made headlines around the world, include objects flying at speeds in directions not possible for human-made flight. However, it would be dangerous to assume that any possible visitors from another planet are coming in peace, according to a group of astronomers cited by Buchanan's op-ed article. Chances are we should all be grateful that we don't yet have any evidence of contact with alien civilizations, Buchanan wrote in a very naively written word, because obviously he hasn't studied this phenomena for a long time. Attempting to communicate with extraterrestrials, which has already been done, if they do exist, which they are, could be extremely dangerous for us. Sometimes it is. We need to figure out whether it's wise or safe and how to handle such attempts in an organized manner. Now, and search for extraterrestrial intelligence, which is known as SETI, astronomer Joe Gertz fears attempts at communicating with aliens could trigger the reckless endangerment of all mankind. Buchanan then warned that beings from other planets are likely to be more advanced than humans, making them an even greater threat. However, some scientists believe extraterrestrial contact could benefit humanity through the use of alien tech, which in turn could improve the planet's sustainability and cure diseases. Intelligence officials have been ordered to compile a dossier on UFOs for Congress after a flurry of videos filmed by the U.S. Navy and Air Force personnel were leaked. In fact, that's wrong, because the U.S. Air Force has not released anything, and the report is due for release later this month. The dossier reportedly will say that the Pentagon cannot explain some 120 sightings made by U.S. Navy personnel over the last 2 decades, but it will conclude that they are not known technology. Go figure. You know what I don't like about articles like this? Let me tell you. Now, this gentleman who they are interviewing, physicist Mark Buchanan, This is probably a guy who has not studied a single thing about UFOs. Not a single thing. But now that it's getting to the point where the government is admitting that these craft are out there, now he's going to be front page news, which he is, because this is from the New York Post that I'm reading this. All right? And he is going to be putting out there the fearmonger tactics. Look, these craft, as far as we know, have not taken down a single military jet. These craft, as far as we know, did not start any world wars when they were turning nuclear facilities on and off in both the U.S. and in Russia simultaneously. These craft have been around and been seen for decades. So his naivety in saying that these craft are brand new is false. And yet these are the people who are going to be leading the charge because they hold a scientific background into the phenomena of UFOs. No, the media isn't going to give a voice to the people who've been doing this for years. No. Why do that? No, this is a useless study that has a lot of holes in it, and unfortunately, it got mainstream press. This is why we are doomed with the mainstream media covering this topic without talking to people in ufology who are actually in the know. Garbage story. Now, here's a weird one. NBC has shut down production of its competition series Ultimate Slip and Slide amid an outbreak of Giardia on the Simi Valley, California set. Now, according to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, Giardia is a microscopic parasite found on the surfaces or in soil, food, or water that has been contaminated with feces from infected people or animals, which, when swallowed, can cause a diarrheal disease. Not what you want at the best of times, very much not what you want on a television set involving slip and slides. Yet news of the production shutdown was first reported by The Wrap, which reports that up to 40 crew members fell violently ill on set after accidentally swallowing some of this poo-filled water. A source with knowledge of the production said an outbreak of awful explosive diarrhea led to people collapsing on set and being forced to run into porta potties. Oh, the horror. Oh, the humanity. A spokesperson for Universal Television Alternative Studios, which is producing the series, stated, "The health and safety of everyone on our set is our number one priority, so out of the abundance of caution, we have made the decision to stop production of the Ultimate Slip and Slide at the current location because apparently the slip and slide place does not shock their water to get rid of the poo contaminants." Yes, apparently so. "We are in the process," they say, "of determining next steps in order to complete production." How about clean the water? How about put some chlorine and some shock in there, just like you do with every other swimming pool? Maybe that'll work. Yep, I don't know. The series is slated to premiere on August 8th, followed by the Summer Olympics closing ceremony. Whether it will make the premiere date now seems a bit of a crapshoot. Isn't that a nice pun on this story? God, I hate puns. Hate them. They're just terrible. That's horrible. Hey, if you're a fan of Pink Floyd or Roger Waters, you're going to be happy with this one. This brick won't be going on that wall. At least that's according to Roger Waters, the famed singer, who used a public forum to reveal that he had turned down a huge financial offer from Mark Zuckerberg to place another brick in the wall, part 2, in a film to promote Instagram. The one-time Pink Floyd vocalist and solo artist appeared at a special event that was part of a campaign to free WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, who was arrested in 2019 after his asylum was revoked by the Ecuadorian government. Assange has been sought for a criminal investigation over leaking secret American documents. As Waters sat with the panel on stage, he presented a folder that held a letter from Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg that requested the usage of a Pink Floyd song, Another Brick in the Wall, in a film that would promote Instagram. Well, let's just say Waters did not hold back. He said to the audience, So it's a massive or a missive from Mark Zuckerberg to me. Arrived this morning with a offer of a huge, huge amount of money, and the answer is, F you, no effing way. The singer then stated that he felt the request was just another example of an insidious movement of them to take over absolutely everything. Reading a portion of the letter to the audience, Water recited, "We want to thank you for considering this project. We feel that the core sentiment of this song is so prevalent and necessary today, which speaks to how timeless your work is, truly." Waters then scoffed, and yet they wanted to use it to make Facebook and Instagram even bigger and more powerful than it already is, so it can continue to censor all of us in this room and prevent this story about Julian Assange getting out. So the general public could go, what? What? No. No more. I will not be party to this BS, Zuckerberg, Waters stated, then added, you think, how did this little prick, who started off by saying, she is pretty, we'll give her a 4 out of 5. She is ugly, we'll give her a 1. How the F did he get any power in anything? And yet here he is, one of the most powerful idiots in the world. Another Brick in the Wall first appeared on Pink Floyd's 1979 album, The Wall, as a 3-part composition. The second part was released as a single and topped the Billboard Hot 100 chart before eventually being certified as a platinum single in the United States. Roger Waters, still stirring it up. That's right. Amazing. I actually saw, I was on the floor, 19 rows in, for the 30th anniversary of The Wall. That was one of the best concerts, if not the best concert I've ever been to. Amazing. The Tokyo Summer Games will test athletes' resolve and discipline in more ways than one, as organizers have advised them against using the 160,000 free condoms provided in the Olympic Village. Each of the 11,000 competing athletes will get about 14 condoms as they descend on the Japanese capital for the Games next month. But International Olympic Committee is discouraging the athletes from getting it on, from putting the rubbers to use, citing risks of COVID-19. Oh, COVID-19 just ruins everything. Instead, they hope the athletes will bring with them back to their home countries as souvenirs. Obviously, they didn't hear about the British Columbia politician who was, pretty much talking about using the glory hole. Our intent and goal is not for athletes to get laid at the Olympic Village, but to help with awareness by taking them back to their own countries, the IOC said. With athletes required to stay at least 2 meters apart from one another, according to the guidelines published in February, it was already difficult for Olympians to get it on. They are also told to avoid physical contact, including handshakes and hugs. Athletes are also only permitted to leave the Olympic Village under special circumstances. Violations of the rules could lead to penalties. Now, condom handouts to Olympians has been a tradition since 1988's Summer Olympics in Seoul, South Korea, as an AIDS epidemic swept across the world. Athletes have been known to get it on a couple times or more during the 2-week spectacle, aided in recent years by an explosion in dating apps. During the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi, Russia, athletes said they used Tinder to meet eligible hookups. Jamie Anderson, an American snowboarder, said, Tinder in the Olympic Village is next level, and that she had to delete her account to focus on the Olympics. Condoms are in such a high demand during the Olympics that past games have run out of protection. During the 2000 Sydney Summer Games, Australian organizers initially prepared 70,000 condoms, but ordered 20,000 more after they ran out halfway through the games. That's a lot of sex. The Olympic record of condom use goes to 2016 Rio. 450,000 were distributed, about 100,000 of them female condoms, guaranteeing each athlete about 42 rubbers for their entire stay. The outbreak of Zika virus in Brazil, which can be transmitted through sex, has raised awareness for safe sex. My goodness. My goodness. I'm impressed with these athletes. Not only can they compete at the highest level, but they are competed at the highest Tinder levels. It's amazing. A sinkhole in Mexico City devoured a house over the weekend in a tragic yet seemingly inevitable turn in a story that has captured the nation's attention. The sinkhole appeared over 2 weeks ago in a field in the central Mexican state of Puebla and slowly grew, inching closer and closer to a white house nearby. Well, by Friday, the house was teetering over the edge of the sinkhole before collapsing into it late that evening. The house was inhabited by a husband and wife along with their 2 children who invested much of their savings into building it and moved in just over a year ago. But everything had changed of their dream home May 29th. That's when they heard a rumbling, and one of the residents of the house, Magdalena, said, "We thought at first it was fireworks, but when we looked outside and saw the earth moving and water coming up like waves, we ran." The sinkhole's growth was aided over the last few weeks by a series of rainy days, which saw it double in size, reaching over 400 feet in length at some points, larger than a football field. But the family's tragedy may have a silver lining. The Puebla state government announced that the municipality will grant a piece of land and the state government will pay for the construction of a new house. The governor, Miguel Barbosa, also said that they are evaluating how to support other farmers nearby who have been affected by the sinkhole, and we will find a way to compensate them. While the collapse of the house ends one chapter in the story of the growing sinkhole, it's still unclear how large it could grow. Images show another properties, roads, and houses in the distance. The government has yet to announce plans to stop its growth as Mexico enters the summer rainy season. Those things are freaky, because they could just pop up at any time. And let's get to this one. Authorities in the Canadian province of Manitoba are asking residents to keep an eye out for an estimated 8-foot white snake seen slithering through residential yards. Brino Martins, who lives in Fort Rouge, an area of Winnipeg, said he was mowing his lawn Saturday afternoon when he spotted the snake slithering in the grass alongside his house. When I saw it, it freaked me out. No kidding. I don't know if it's dangerous, I don't know if it's venomous, and I don't know that we have many pets and kids in the neighborhood. Martin, who doesn't know much, and his neighbors attempted to keep an eye on the snake while waiting for Winnipeg Animal Services to arrive, but the reptile disappeared into a neighbor's bushes before they arrived. Police said Animal Services was not able to locate the serpent and warned nearby residents to be aware of an 8-foot-long snake loose on the area. And finally tonight, oh, Florida man, you are back with beauty. A Miami man is facing charges after allegedly attacking a homeless man by stomping on his head and hitting him repeatedly with a shopping cart. Yet 36-year-old Dexter McQueen, who apparently has no couth, is facing charges of, oh my God, he killed the guy, from second-degree murder and aggravated battery after witnesses told police he was seen dragging a man onto the road at 10:30 p.m. According to the arrest report, McQueen was seen fighting with another man in the median of State Road 90 near Southwest 122 Ave. McQueen started stomping on the man's head, that's horrible, before grabbing a blue shopping cart and hitting the man with it at least 3 times. The man was taken to hospital with serious bodily injuries. Police have not yet identified the victim, but said he is possibly a homeless man. A retired firefighter told police he pulled over and held McQueen at gunpoint to stop him from attacking the man. McQueen was arrested and taken into jail. That's just horrible. Killing a guy by shopping cart. Only in Florida. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. In your opinion, what's the best ET contact story that needs more coverage? Evil Carl. I still think John Edmund's Stardust Ranch needs more coverage. Everyone talks about Skinwalker Ranch, but I feel like his is just as active, and he has alien body samples. Conundrum. I would like to hear about the spacecrafts and what kind of species are flying them. Let's go to Holly. My story, because it happened to me, my sister, and grandmother at the same time, the same year as the Hill abduction. I would love to hear that story. Totally would. Deb. Nancy Tremaine in Novi, Michigan in the 1960s. By my account, her incredibly complicated and ongoing, well-researched encounter has only been told 5 to 6 times in general public. Andy, I will paint with a broad brush. The best ET contact story, anyone that has flown a spacecraft. Grant Cameron says he has a list of over 40 people that have flown a craft using only their mind and touching the craft. Why? Maybe we can figure out how they work, where they are from, and gather data just by talking to these people. At least get an idea of what is going on. Edie, did you hear the one about the Canadian police officer that saw a UFO hovering over the lake? He is now the Raccoon Whisperer on YouTube and has old clips of his interviews. I would love to hear more about that. He lives in Nova Scotia. Me too. Grant Cameron jumps in. Nancy Tremaine, for sure. The one lecture she gave was a standing ovation with people crying. She sold all her books in minutes. As a single mother, she researched her own story, taped all the interviews, arranged the regressions for herself and one other person on the ship. Cut off by much of her family, she kept moving. She also has an incredible life story apart from UFOs. Candy, Stan Romanek's story is incredible. He has so much evidence, it's amazing. I'm not sure about that one. Becky, Deb White Cobble, for sure. Fascinating story. Yeah, we just had Deb Cobble on the show. Russell, final words. Let's see where we are. Friendship, W56 mass contact, credible witnesses. Stefan Brescia was an engineer. The AKRU identified who was manipulating humanity. I would like to know more about that one. My favorite story of ET contact that has gone nowhere is my story with Samantha Mowat. I want a movie about that, even though it's not really worth a movie. And, you know, by God, I mean, who's going to play me? Jack Black? Right? I mean, Chris Farley's already dead. So anyways, I would love to have that story. That would make my day. Little aliens in the forest, dogs disappearing, few days before, UFO on the ground. That's a good movie. Except nothing boring happens. It's all boring. Like, nothing good happens. There's no killing. There's no maiming. There's no getting chased by swords with aliens shooting laser beams at us. Nothing. But we could get over it. Thank you to everybody participating in the Thought of the Day. We'll do it all again tomorrow. Thank you to Captain Shirk for the SOR Newswire, and to Preston Dennett for hanging on out and talking UFOs. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with what Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight on YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and those joining us on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, yep, we've got room for them too. Good night.